Okay, it is Monday, 9th of May 2022. It is 8:30 p.m. UK time, and this is part of my journey, episode 20. I can't believe we've got to 20 episodes already. Each and every one of my guests have been amazing, open, honest about their experiences, about their lives, that's not going to be any different today. I've got a great guest who I'll introduce very shortly. If you're watching this on Twitch, make sure you hit that follow button. If you're watching it on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. If you're listening on Mixcloud, obviously follow us. But any otherwise, you can check us out on all the socials: Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, YouTube. Come and find us and check out the website 45day.com. So my guest tonight is DJ Miss Chivers from the UK, and I'm going to bring her in. We've got quite a lot to talk about, so we may as well get going. And here she is. How you doing?
Hi, Criztoz. You all right?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you today? Are you all right?
I'm good. I'm good. And hello to everyone watching. Thanks for joining us.
It's all cool. It's all cool. Thank you so much for being my guest. This is a talk show primarily about mental health, but we talk about lots of different things. We'll move to the mental health side of things shortly, but I like to ask my guests a little bit about their background so that in case anyone's watching that they may not know. So let's start from the very beginning. You know, who are your first sort of musical influences from a young age? What was it? Family? Was it friends? Was it sort of siblings? You know, who sort of got you into music to start with?
Well, I'm the eldest of 5, so it was definitely not my siblings. So, although they do inspire me now, they've got quite a musical family. But it was definitely my parents. My dad on one side was very Motown Atlantic stacks and vinyl, which is where that's come from. Yeah. And then my mum was very kind of like soul, disco, kind of like 80s kind of soul as well. You know, like your kind of just all those kind of beats, like and George Benson and all that kind of, you know, the kind of soul, kind of funk soul sort of thing. So they kind of merged very well, actually. They weren't too extremes, which is kind of good.
And you say obviously they're into vinyl, so I assume there was a record deck set up at home.
There was. We had one of those. I remember we had one of those record decks that would for 45s. It would automatically kind of interchange them or like play the next one. You stack them up. But I've learned, I've since learned that they're actually not very good for the vinyl. so
I think they must have a specific name. I can't remember because I'm pretty sure I've said this before, that the room I'm in is actually where I grew up. It was my parents' old house, and so I've got really good memories of sort of sitting on the floor over there about the age of 5 with this sort of blue record deck, and again similar to you with that sort of little plastic hand that sort of comes across like an L shape, and you'd stack the records up.
That's
and
right.
Sort of gradually
That's
fall
right.
down.
Yeah, and even when I was a kid, I remember the kind of, you know, I mean, this might be kind of almost like early teens, but remember Smash Hits used to do the acetate vinyl on the front, or some magazine did, you know, and I used to get those and whatever. But also, I mean, this is before my time, but I love the story my dad told me about. I've tried to look them up as well, and the only place I could find one is New Zealand. It's called a Discotron. Have you heard of that?
I have heard of it. I'm trying to think what it is though.
It's a portable record player that's vertical. Right. That basically he used to have on his back. Yeah. He used to carry around his arm, and he used to have a mate behind him changing the records for him as he used to walk around town. And I'm like, you absolutely show off. That's terrible. But I tried to find one because I think the name is amazing, Discotron.
Yeah.
And the fact that it can play portable vinyls by battery vertically is just the most amazing thing. So I've tried to, if anyone knows where I can find one, please let me know.
That is very interesting. I mean, I have seen the odd deck that is vertical, but you have to sort of clamp it in.
Right.
It doesn't quite sound like in that same thing. But yeah, no, that's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So
someone somewhere will tell us.
Exactly. So the vinyl influence is definitely from my kind of dad's side. Yeah.
And what about you, Mum? Was she into vinyl as well?
Well, to be fair, I've got quite a lot of. I did steal some from 45s from her when I was younger, but not so much for a collection. But the musical influence is still there, you know. So yeah.
Okay, cool. And were they obviously you say that you used to walk around with this Discotron as well? Yeah. Was he a DJ as well, or just a music lover?
No, just a music lover. That's the thing. I don't understand why he was doing it. Okay. But he was very much kind of he was very sociable, and he was always at the kind of old kind of sweat boxes and stuff back in the day when he was a skinhead mod that was into Motown. There you go.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Brilliant. No, that sounds great. That sounds really great. Okay, so that's the sort of musical influences, and obviously, you know, one of the reasons you're on here is because you're a DJ, and we'll talk about 45s a little bit later. But how did you first get into DJing?
So I actually brought this up on a panel that I did a couple of weeks ago in Cambridge, actually, for this music conference. And a lot of people that I've known for years were actually, they've never heard this story before. It's probably because I might as well upload it now as well to the masses. But I collected, vinyl since I was, from a young age, but definitely kind of focusing on collecting it since about 15.
Yeah.
Just go to charity shops, like, markets, that kind of thing. I remember my very first kind of vinyl that I bought that I was really, really happy with, that I found in Leicester Market when I was about 17. And it was Stevie Wonder, Boogie and Reggae Woman was on the B side, and it was Superstition on the A side, and it was just like, an LP. It was amazing. So I was definitely like a collector and just loved kind of digging the crates everywhere. But I never played, and I was not a DJ. I just loved music. And that went through my kind of university years and into my early 20s. And when I moved back to Cambridge in my early 20s, I socialised a lot. I was going out a lot, and came across, I remember it was a weekend of Glastonbury, so a lot of people were away, but there was a kind of a dance, kind of techno electronic night called I can't remember what it's called now, the Priory, and they were doing a night. Anyway, we walked past and we went in, and there was a lad that they had on warming up playing Motown before a techno kind of night, and I was like, well, that's amazing for people our age to kind of accept Motown into their kind of like, into their kind of electronic nights. It's brilliant. So his name was Dom, so I started talking to him, and we agreed that we would always put on a Motown night for people our age, or anyone, but really kind of, to get the Motown and the soul and the funk and Atlantic kind of ingrained in people's heads again. So the way I talked about it, I now know he assumed I DJ'd, but I didn't. So we chose the name of the night. It was called the Sweatbox. We had to change that, so we changed it to Uptight, based on Stevie Wonder. And that night, then, because afterwards, looking back, it ran for 10 years that night in Cambridge. It was really successful, But on this first night, we got the flyers done, got it booked in, everything to this venue. It was only a small bar, but it was big enough. Got there, and he was like, "Where are your records?" I was like, "I don't DJ. I don't DJ." And he was like, "Well, you're going to have to, because you're on the lineup." And I just didn't realise how, I thought my name was on there just because I was part of it. Yeah. And I wasn't called Miss Chivers back then. I don't know what my name was, actually. We hadn't come up with my DJ name at that point, even though it's my actual name. And basically, so I had to, and I was like, right, oh God, what am I going to do? So I called my dad. He was coming anyway. Called my dad. I was like, "Dad, can you bring your records? Like, you need to bring your records." He brought his box along, and I remember saying to the sound engineer which I now know a deck. So I have my own 1210s, and I've got everything now. But I said, "How do you make it go from that thing to that thing?" Right. And the sound engineer was like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, what is it? All, please." Yeah. And he went, "Right, well, you use this thing in the middle, crossfader." Yeah. And I had my baptism fire there. Obviously, luckily with Motown and soul, you don't have to beat match. So it was just tune selection, which I know I was good at anyway, because I just love the music, and that's where it all started. And literally a year or so later, I got booked for the Ministry of Sound. I had never played dance music before, but I did it, and so I learned on the job. And it wasn't the fact that I was blagging it. I think just my kind of passion for the music preceded my ability to play it. But I think because I had a good ear anyway, and I've always been into beats and stuff, it just happened naturally. Luckily, I didn't make a fool of myself, but that's where it started.
That's a really cool story. That's really cool, and it's interesting because a lot of people do sort of fall into it, not intending to. I mean, yes, there's obviously people who think, right, I want to be a DJ, then they go and do everything they want. But a lot of other people, certainly music collectors or vinyl lovers, do tend to just sort of fall into it. I mean, I didn't really start DJing until I was probably about 30. I sort of collected lots of CDs, lots of vinyl, lots of this, that. And it's only then, when I was about 30, about 15, 16 years ago, that I thought, right, I'm going to get some decks and then start playing. Exactly. By then, and again, I hadn't set out to do it, and then it's sort of, where it's sort of ended up now. But that's really cool. But playing a place like Ministry of Sound, that's amazing. So you started Motown, and then obviously you said sort of breaks and beats and things like that. Yeah. So more dance music orientated.
Exactly. And so Uptight the Night then started to kind of merge very quickly, just to kind of be accessible to everyone that was in the scene and everything. And also, we knew that if we brought electronic music into it, people would come for that. And then we could kind of, we're not like educators, we're like, oh, you need to learn about Motown and soul and stuff. But it was more like, if you come to the night, then you'll hear where things have come from. So, because I always found and always loved the fact that breaks was very influenced by Motown, soul and funk. There's so many licks and so many samples, included in that. And that's then where my kind of career developed as well, and kind of my kind of projects I set up, and this B-side project that I set up over 10 years ago was about remixing, but about really appreciating samples and where they've come from. And the radio show that I did then since then as well was always about, right, here's the track, here's a dance track, but let's find out where those points of that track, where the hooks, where the lyrics, where the melodies have come from. So so everyone knows that it's actually come from something that was amazing. First off, you know, like then that website whosampled.com. It's one of my favorites. You know, I know them anyway, and it's like, right, that's the place where you should go for your music education.
Well, it's really interesting hearing from a sort of breaks point of view as well, because obviously, you know, I'm quite into hip hop, and lots of the DJs who are part of the 45 Kings and that play a lot of hip hop, and obviously they go searching for the original samples. It's interesting that there's that same sort of sample and going backwards and forwards, you know, in the sort of break side of things as well. You know, it just shows that music, it never really dies. You know, someone will always listen to something and think, okay, I can make something new out of this, or sample it, or remix it, or whatever. So
exactly.
Yeah. And
but then I think then breaks
Yeah,
came very much from hip hop anyway, didn't it? Like UK hip hop anyway. So there's that really nice kind of linear history of where it all came from, and I love looking at that.
Yeah, I mean, it's about joining the dots, isn't it? You know, you can see where things started, where they've gone to, where they're going next, and especially if any new music samples something from like 20, 30 years ago, we're like, oh, this has already been sampled, or, you know, someone's already done this. It's interesting. Okay, you sort of touched on the B-side project. Do you want to talk us through that? Because that's something you started in 2009, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, again, complete. My career seems to be like based on mistakes, or happy mistakes, I call them. Like, you know,
happy accidents.
Happy accidents. Yeah, exactly. And there's just an idea I came up with because I was working with just as a hobby, not to earn any money, really, just to kind of just entertain myself and stop myself from going mad. Was working with bands in Cambridge. Then also I was doing the music nights, the electronic nights. And I wanted to kind of work out a way to get the two audiences together, because I had friends that were into bands and live music, and friends that were into electronic music. So I came up with this idea of the B-side project, which back then the whole remixing hadn't become such a big thing by then. It was kind of just before the wave of it. Obviously remix has been around for ages, but I mean the kind of resurgence of it, like, you know, like producers doing remix competitions, that hadn't happened yet. On the kind of mainstream. So the premise of the B-side was to get live bands, or singer-songwriters, whatever, anyone making their own music, to enter a track, and then we would randomly pair them with a dance music producer. No one had a choice. No one would have a choice about who they worked with. So the pilots were in Cambridge and Norwich in the UK, and there was 10 bands, 10 producers, and like, for example, a folk band would get a techno producer, and the techno producer would have to remix that whether they liked it or not. Right, and that's the difference between every other kind of competition or contest there is out there. You just don't get the choice, and the whole kind of tagline is to come out of your comfort zone on both sides, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
And the output was amazing. Obviously the pilots went really well. We had a panel of judges judging on the different aspects. It was like arrangement, imagination, innovation, and the actual production itself. And since then, it took years. I'd spent so much money on it, going from these two local pilots to make it international. But in the kind of 6th year, I think, I managed to finally get a sponsor by Prism Sound. They do high-end interfaces.
Yeah.
And they really supported it. We ended up having the yearly awards events at Metropolis Studios in London, as well as other studios. We've been to, since then, we've been to Strong Room Studios, we've been to Tile Yard. And it's been a yearly thing. Unfortunately, the last couple of years, it hasn't, because of lockdown and everything took over in that way. But we are going to start it again. But in the end, we ended up, the last one we did was, oh gosh, I don't know, people from 60 different countries entered it. That's how big it got.
Wow.
Yeah. And the spread of that, then, if you think about it, we then got, we quality controlled the band, the original tracks coming in. So we ended up with 50 original tracks. We had to quality control those to make sure they had the stems and stuff that the producer was thinking. So we quality controlled and get down to 50 original tracks. And then we'd have 250, 300 producers entering that would actually kind of get to the final stages. Not because we kind of say, oh, you have to be this good, but just people kind of pull out for different reasons, whatever. But we end up with 5 different remixes of each original track, at least.
Yeah.
From different countries. So a grunge band from Seattle would get a remix from Berlin that was techno, a remix from Australia that was breaks. It's this amazing, the actual output we get, and the amazing array of music we get. And then from this year, we're actually finally starting to release some of the kind of best ones. So yeah.
Well, I was going to say, because I think are you launching the CMY Records label? Is that?
Yes, that's
part,
it.
That is
It
part
is.
of this same project.
It is. But well, again, kind of not really thought about it much because it's just now that I'm kind of getting as everyone put it out their nose, it's such a just a big thing and so many complicated aspects to releasing music. It should be easier.
Yeah.
I mean, I've worked in it now, and I've kind of been educating and advising people on how to do PRS and your royalty collections and stuff for years. And I've worked with PRS, I've worked with lots of music colleges, but when it comes to doing it, it's still tough. It's still a big Pandora's box. So, but now I'm at the stage where I can do it. I've got the right contacts and the right advice. So through CMI Records, which I just had my own EP release on, we're going to then release a kind of like a couple of albums of the kind of best of B-sides. So it'll include the original tracks and the remixes as well.
And are these going to be digital, vinyl, both?
It'd be digital. Vinyl, see, that's a question we've been asked lots because
Really hard, isn't it?
yeah, a person I work with, Criztoz, he's just done his first kind of remastered album as well, which we brought out on his label. And we've been asked on socials so often, like, when's the vinyl going to come out? And we could do like, I think with the B-side project, I think just digital because we want the kind of spread of it and we need to keep the cost down.
Yeah, of course.
But I think with other releases, I think if the interest is there and the want is there, then small kind of like releases, small promo releases we can easily look at on vinyl. Yeah, it's important to keep the vinyl there. My little brother, my second youngest brother, he lives in Australia normally. He actually works for or is part of a vinyl pressing company in Australia. Wow. Yeah. So he's got is it a lathe? He uses a lathe or something?
Lathe cut, yeah.
That's right. So he's, he does that. So I'm going to basically pick him up on it and say, look, just do me I'll pay him. Obviously, don't want to, kind of use my family, but I will pull him up, even if he's in Australia. It's like, look, let's get some vinyl presses of this stuff. So yeah.
I mean, we've talked a little bit on some of the other shows about how difficult vinyl pressing is at the moment, just because obviously there's so few pressing plants, and also just the backlog, the delays of getting things done and then getting them from one part of the world to another part of the world.
Yeah.
I mean, and we, even just last week there was some issues about records being sent from Australia to the UK and Europe, and then somehow getting too hot on the journey and being warped and things like that, which is just, it just completely throws any sort of business when you've got to replace those sort of things.
Yeah.
But there's a new pressing plant up north here, pressing. I can't remember now what it's called, press on vinyl, something like that.
Right, okay.
But it would be nice to see what happens. But again, it's things like, love it or hate it, Record Store Day is with us, but you end up getting all these ridiculous releases that don't need to be repressed on vinyl, which then just sort of throws the whole ecosystem of smaller pressings out the window. Really, it's just
exactly. But what is good though is that vinyl has come back. I remember I always said to everyone, it would come back, right. Get this. So I got 1210s. Again, like you, like later in life.
Yeah.
But I got them when everyone was getting rid of theirs. So I got my 1210 Mark IIs for 200 quid the pair.
Wow.
Yeah.
You can't get into that now.
They're not here because I used them at an event I put on last weekend. Yeah. But yeah, literally. And I said to the bloke sending them, I was like, you're going to regret this. You're so going to regret this. I've got like 6-7 vinyl players at home once I unpack, but the 1210s are my babies. And it was like, no, vinyl's dying. No one's using them anymore, blah, blah. Now, I mean, how much do they cost now on eBay? Mark IIs.
You'll be talking for a decent pair, probably somewhere about 1,200, maybe 2, something like that.
Exactly. I'm literally going, it's so funny. Yeah, and I just knew it. And the same with vinyl, like people getting rid of their vinyls now.
Yeah.
DJs that I play with that got rid of their vinyls are actually like really, really gutted they did it. And I was like, I told you at the time, I would never get rid of these babies. I've got so many that they're not all on show, but you can't see the half of them. But it's just my dad, it's the bane of my dad's life when I move every time because they've got to come with me, but they will never go. And he's actually given me a whole 45 collection now as well.
So that sounds
I've been asking for it for years, and and you know what he did? It was hilarious. He said he's this kind of, he's into his YouTube now. And he said, can you write me, though, this is your job, can you write me a catalogue of what it is so I can then look them up on YouTube?
Right, okay. That's brilliant. Well, I mean, the thing is, once you've got them, I mean, obviously Discogs is there. A lot of people put all of their collection onto Discogs just to have an idea of what their value and...
not to sell them. See, I don't want to know what the value is.
No, you don't need to, not to sell them, just to have some sort of record of what you've got,
right.
So you know where it is. And, some people do that for insurance purposes as well, so they can just go to the insurance company and say, there you go, there's this, that,
think of that.
Because you sort of forget, when you add it up, if you've got like 500, 1,000 vinyl, maybe more than that. You know, it's actually worth something. You know,
I didn't even think of that, you know, like for insurance purposes, because they're just so part of me, and I've never thought the value of them apart from my personal value to them, you know. So that's actually a good point. Maybe I need to sort all this out and put them in genre order, you know, at some point in my life.
Tell me about it. I started that. I've got like a reggae, I've got a hip hop, I've got like a funk, and then I've got a little cover thing, and then everything else is just sort of everywhere. I just need to spend like 3 or 4 days literally just going through it all. But
you know that it won't take 3 or 4 days because you just get stuck into playing them.
Well, exactly. Yeah,
it's like going through a memory box. It's just you get reeled in, and then the job just becomes it's not a horrible job, but it's just you need to what you think it's going to take, you double it.
yeah, exactly, definitely. I'm just going to say hello to Benny Goggs, who's joined us. He's saying that Technics Mark II are probably between 500 to 700 quid each. Yeah, which is what.
There you go.
I said, but yeah. I mean, they are great decks, but they are like sort of. What was it, the 50th? Was it the 50th anniversary of the day? I think they did. There was maybe it's not 50, maybe it's less than that. 50, no, 50 could be right actually. 70.
Yeah,
they did a Technics 50. DJ Coco and lots of other DJs were playing. But yeah, I mean, there's alternatives. You can buy other decks now.
And of course, I've got to say, I had some Citronics. That's what I learned on. I've never learned on belt drive though. I always learned on direct drive, thank goodness. But yeah, no, I had some, and I've got a Stanton deck, which is a USB kind of. You play it as a normal deck, but you can like record, you know, onto MP3 as if I'd ever have time to do that, but it's nice to have it. But then I heard, you know, because back in because Philips, but they made Technics, didn't they? It was Philips' own Technics.
Yeah, at one point.
Yeah. And didn't they kind of discontinue and they sold it, but now they're kind of coming back because they realise like obviously the value of
I think Panasonic run Technics now.
Right.
I think they do that. So a lot of the other decks that come out are Panasonic as well. But
right.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's move on to 45s. And so we sort of connected through. I think you were recommended to me by
Graham
Weeby in Scotland. Yeah,
Graham. That's right. Yeah.
Good friend up there, and you've joined the 45 Kings Collective.
That's right.
And you just slightly ran out of time to do a 45-day mix.
I know.
You're moving and all the rest of it, and it's going to happen every year. So
I'm on with you in June, aren't I, or something? I think
you're on. Yeah, it won't be with me because I'm actually at Glastonbury. But yeah, it's 25th of June. You're on Coffee and Donuts show.
That's right.
So we're looking forward to having that. Yeah, I mean it's been great. We've had quite a few 45 queens, as we like to call them, on there, and it's great to increase it. And it's the same with 45 Day this year. You know, I've increased a little bit. I think last year was 20. I think we're up to about 27 this year with women DJs.
That's good.
I mean, I'd love it at one day to be 50-50. I don't think we're quite going to get there, but we're getting close. It's about 20% now on 45 Day, which is good, and it's just spreading the word. And again, there's a few people who couldn't quite.
That's more than the kind of general industry percentage. I'm part of this group on Facebook called 2% Rising, which is all about women in the kind of pro audio industry, like master engineers, mixing engineers, producers, you know, like, but not so much the kind of singers, the performers, you know, but more kind of the back end, the kind of technical side of things. And it's called 2% Rising because it is only 2% of the industry that's female. Yeah.
And is that simply because of interest for a start? Is it more men are interested in that sort of side of things than women? More men are sort of, I suppose, nerdy a little bit.
I think so. I think historically, I mean, there was again as part of a panel I was part of a couple of weeks ago, but there's lots of different reasons. I think it's just that really it's about awareness. It's about, and it is, you know, it's very male orientated industry. But I think it comes literally from education and the kind of the ground roots of encouraging young girls to get into STEM. You know, the science, the technology, those kind of like more what is seen as more boyish subjects, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Back then, and then you can kind of go into it easier. We're they're part of a number of groups out there encouraging that. So I've just been asked to be on a kind of mentorship kind of working group at Anglia Ruskin University to encourage with the women that are in the kind of audio technical, the girls or women that are in the audio technical students, to kind of support them. But also they've asked me to look at the processes within the university that were actually created to be more male orientated processes. So that's going to be quite interesting.
And that's really interesting. Yeah. Because I mean, like I said, it's interesting for me seeing it from the sort of DJ perspective, and also with sort of the 45 kids that we're doing. Obviously, you know, you met my daughter and female Benny Goggs's daughter. Indie Mix is one of the 45 kids, and again, it's quite nice seeing young girl DJs firstly playing music, but secondly playing vinyl as well. You know, it's just amazing. It's also, you know, I don't know if she'll carry on. She probably will, might not, but it doesn't matter really. It's the fact that it's there and she knows that she can do it. And it's not just for boys or not just for men or not just for, you know, anyone can do it. And
that's the age to get them in at. It's the age to get it instilled.
You know, and you know, it's amazing to see their confidence growing. And each time we do one of these 45 kids shows, that the kids are just getting better and better. It's brilliant. Right, we transgressed a little bit there, but let's come back to 45s then. So why do you like 45s? I know why I like them, but you know, what do you like about them?
Never been asked that question before. I don't know. It's just
coming on a show about 45.
I think, you know, I think it's because it's nostalgic.
Yeah,
I think, you know, I'm very into my history anyway, and I love kind of nostalgia, and I love the kind of things that remind me of kind of times gone by, and even before I was born, like before my time, I love the kind of culture of the 60s and the kind of culture of the Motown and the soul coming over to the UK. I've got so many books on it. It's just something I'm interested in. I don't know why, because it kind of goes above and beyond my dad kind of getting me into it, because I guess because he was in it, I want to feel like what it was like to be in it.
Right. Okay.
You know, so that's where the kind of love for it came from, and just having the kind of the tangible, kind of tactile, kind of, you know, vinyl there, kind of from the time and from that movement is just this is what I love, and also just they're just so, I don't know, it's so much fun. That's my answer.
They are, aren't they? That's the thing. I mean, I've collected records and like CDs for what I said, but it's only really probably about 5 or 6 years ago that I started getting back into 45s. My friend said, let's just do a 45 now. We were doing digital tractor DJing. And then I was like, okay, yeah, I've got a load of 45s, and just took about, and it was just, like you say, it's just so much fun.
Yeah.
You know, because you've only got 1 or 2 tracks to choose from for a start. Yeah. And you've only got 3 or 4 minutes of each track. Yeah. You know, that's if you play the whole thing. And it just keeps you on your toes.
It keeps you on the ball. Yeah, exactly. It keeps you working. And I'm not working, but it keeps you on the ball. And, you know, instead of kind of like getting a bit, not that I ever get bored of my sets, but it's like, so I did the same as you. I did a 45 vinyl only event just in a local cafe in a place where I used to live. And, you know, but I got the audience involved. So I had like literally my vinyl box in front of me. I said, pick one out. You know, so they all came up, and every time they picked one out, they had to put like £1 in the raffle for the local charity or something like that. But it was a case of like, it's a case of like, yeah, I'll play some, but please pick some out and I'll put it on, and it doesn't matter what it is, you know. So it's just that whole kind of like, because they're quite short tunes, and because they're so, you know, you've got 45s on everything. I've got so many genres of my 45 records. You can just pick a mix, and again, it's because they've always got a memory linked to them for someone, haven't they? So yeah.
Well, they've usually been a single, or like the lead single from an album, or they've been a hit. Certainly the older ones, and some, certainly like you say, the Motown ones. You know, people would have been to discos or school nights out or whatever, and that particular track does that.
Yeah. But the crackle as well. I love the crackle as well. I know a lot of people don't like or whatever, but it's the crackle. It's the, you know, it's just that kind of the sound of the vinyl. You get that with kind of 12 inches as well, but it's just that kind of whole sound, that whole authenticity of it. So yeah,
and it's also, I think, a lot of no disrespect to any digital DJs at all, because you know we've all done it and all done it, but it's obviously it's you're not staring at a laptop anymore, and bizarrely, the way we've come back to streaming now, we are staring at you know, a screen, but in a completely different way, because we're interacting. But yeah, it just stops that sort of looking like you're checking your emails or whatever.
Exactly.
You know, but it's a lot more fun. Okay, so you say there's lots of different genres. So what genres do you collect, particularly in 45s?
I particularly collect my kind of 80s beats. You know, like I can't think of, like, literally off the top of my head, cannot think, like just literally any 80s beats that I can think of. And then I mean, like, primarily it's Motown and Stax, though. Atlantic. Okay. That's what I kind of look at. And I often buy some that I know I've got already, but it's on a different label, because I think there was different labels for America and here, especially when the Motown came over. Okay. So that's the kind of thing I collect, and I just love digging. Like, even if it's like, I mean, I've still got my very first vinyl that I didn't buy because I was like 3, but it was the Birdie song by the Tweets. And I've still got it because I don't, you know, those kind of things. But collecting wise now, it's definitely the kind of Motown, the soul. I mean, like, I always have to go. I always find that when you go to a charity shop, you have to put your poker face on, because if they see that you're excited by something, they might put the price up. Yeah.
They might suddenly jump it up.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it's finding those gems, you know, amongst those charity shops. And I mean, if you go to a record shop, obviously they know, the people in the shop know what the kind of, they've got the passion for it as well, and they know how much everyone loves them. But in charity shops, I find that even more fun because no one's aware of what kind of is going on inside your heart and your head when you're finding something. So yeah.
Yeah, and is that mainly, obviously, other than record shops, is that mainly what you do, charity shops, or do you go to boot fairs and things like that?
I haven't been to a boot fair for a long time. I'm going to get back into it again, but it has been charity shops. There's a whole road down Cambridge, in Cambridge, that's just charity shop city. So that's a really good place to do it. But I do want. I don't think I've ever bought any 45s online because I like that whole kind of happy mistake thing happening. You know, like you're just going around town and you want to jump in, and just those spontaneity moments. For my vinyls, yeah.
No, it's quite cool. I mean, it's cool. I mean, because of the pandemic, it was difficult to sort of buy stuff, but it's nice now going back into the record shops and back into the charity shops and just seeing what's there and picking something up. You know, like I picked something up the other day for the A side, and then it's only when you get back you play the B side, and you're like, I didn't realize that was fun.
Yeah, it's exactly funny enough. Going back to what we talked about, the B-side project is called that for exactly that.
Yeah.
It's always like you always get surprised by the B-sides, and sometimes the B-sides are even better. You know, like what was it? The Amen Breaks, the Winston Brothers, the B-side is the one they took the Amen Breaks from, isn't it? So you know, those kind of things, I love it. Love B-sides.
Well, I mean, we say sort of B-side for the win, as in, you know, it's much better than the A-side a lot of times, and there's quite a few 45s that you do always play the B-side, but it's just remembering to flip it over and listen to that other side. I'm guilty of it. You know, I've got so many records, and then it's every now and again I will flip it, and I'm like, oh god, I didn't realize.
And you don't get that. You don't get that with digital. You can't get that with digital.
No, and there isn't the whole. Again, it's the tactile. You know, you've got something in your hand. You know, it's a bit like I said the kids. Benny Uggs is saying B-side bombs.
Yeah, I can see that.
I say the kids, and this is funny because someone put a post in the 45 Kings group today. It was a copy of a tweet that I don't know who she was, some woman in Twitter had put. She says, I'm doing a project on elderly DJs. If you're a DJ who's over 25.
Oh my God.
And we were like, I don't think anyone is under 25 in this group.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, so the kids collect cassettes. Yeah. Which blows my mind because they probably haven't got anything to play it on. And cassettes were historically pretty bad quality, you know. They never so, but again, it's just having something, you know, rather than having a digital thing on your phone or on your computer or whatever. You've actually got something physical to hold.
That's why it's the first thing that I did. I sorted out in my new flat was my vinyl. I just love looking at them, you know, just not even having them out, but just looking at the way they are, you know, stacked along. It's brilliant. Yeah,
we were talking about this before the show started, weren't we? That, you know, when I moved in here, the first thing I did was make sure my vinyl was out and the decks and all the rest of it. I think, you know, as DJs, music lovers, it's such a big part of our lives that it has to be accessible and able to, if you need to sort of switch it on. Which perhaps leads us sort of onto sort of the mental health side of things. So in terms of mental health, you know, how has music affected you and your mental health, would you say, over the years?
I think it's the one thing that kind of grounds me. I know it's probably quite a kind of broad kind of answer, but it's my outlet, and it's the one thing that grounds me. I mean, when I was younger, so I'll be completely frank, in my 20s, when I'm registered fully sight impaired. Kappa, my guide dog's just gone outside. He's having a look outside. I can still see a little bit. I've got about 10% left of my eyesight, but my brain, apparently, this comes into mental health as well. It's amazing how the brain works. My brain is actually filling in the gaps.
Right.
So I was told, because I think I can still see quite a lot, but my consultants have said, no, you can't, but your brain is filling in the gaps. Not so much from memory, because if I go somewhere new, everyone's like, well, how can you fill in the gaps if you haven't seen it before? It's just your brain being super intelligent, you know, super clever, and just filling in what it thinks is there. So often than not, if someone comes around to where I live, where I know where exactly everything is, if they move something like a mirror, I'll walk past it thinking it's still there because my brain has put it there. It's crazy. So, you know, in that respect, it's really mad. It's really mad. Yeah. It happened to me. In fact, it happened when my sister moved my full-length mirror. I walked past it thinking it was there, but it wasn't. I walked straight into it in my bedroom because I couldn't see it there. It's really strange. It's a really good kind of like example of it. But with that, my kind of mental health has suffered, not just because of the process of kind of knowing that you're losing your sight. My condition is degenerative, so it's slow, but it's kind of constant. Right. Luckily, by my age, I'm with the condition I've got called RP, you generally go blind fully when you're 30 or by the time you're 30, and I'm now over 40. So, you know,
Right.
it's been a really slow process for me, and I'm very lucky in having a non-aggressive version of it. But obviously it's affected my mental health because you're constantly kind of in the back of your head, even if you have kind of counselling, which I've had loads of, you still got that worry, that kind of ticking time bomb. You know, when's it going to happen? I need to fit everything in I possibly can to do all the things I possibly want to do before I go blind. But obviously life isn't over when you become blind. I've learned that now. I'm part of some amazing groups. I've got some brilliant people that inspire me and that I inspire. You know, I'm really kind of involved in a lot of groups, but in terms of mental health, it definitely affected me like that quite heavily. But music kept me going, and having to have these music projects and the things I've kind of experienced and achieved, you know, like I've worked with Wolfgang Fleur from Kraftwerk. I was his agent for a while, and you know, went to Japan for a 3-day round trip. I mean, who now does that? You know, like I would never have done. Again, it's all like because I started this B-side project and just got into the music scene and the industry because I was passionate about stuff. It was because I needed something to really kind of attach myself to that wasn't going to go away if I became fully blind.
It's amazing where music can take you, and we'll come back to that point in a minute. But so when, well, a couple of things that rise out of this. Is this something that is genetic? Is it being passed down?
It is genetic, but it started at me. We had genetic counselling when I got diagnosed in my early 20s, and then it kind of you're in denial for ages with this particular with any sight loss, but this particular condition because it's so kind of degenerative. But yeah, it is genetic, but none of my family have got it. We couldn't find any links to it, but then any genetic condition has to start somewhere. So it's just a case of the term is, what is it? Mutation at conception.
Okay.
I'm a mutant. So yeah, no. So basically it starts with me. So if I had children, which, you know, I just decided I didn't want to anyway, it's not because of this thing, it's just the way my life is. Yeah. But I would pass it down. So it has to start anyway. So it's genetic, but I think it's quite, in a weird way, it's quite nice for my family that no one felt that they were to blame.
Yeah. So, no, I get that, because I guess, you know, if someone had it, and then, like you say, you know, you've not decided,
it can jump. Yeah, it can jump kind of generations as well. So it's not like, so basically I'd kind of, you know, my family have been very supportive all the way through, but it was kind of the thing that I owned. And so again, it was like, you know, I can deal with this. So it's like not being passed down from anywhere. So yeah, but the music in that respect, because I always had in my head, I didn't choose my career or have all these happy accidents because of my eyesight disorder. But I always knew that, you know, my hearing actually, I could swear got better.
Okay.
You know,
so your hearing improved as your sight unfortunately but, it's interesting what you said, because it's almost a little bit like a bucket list, what you're sort of describing, isn't it? You sort of got to the point to, right, okay, you know, I need to do this and this and this. Is there things you think you definitely have done because of this, and things that you wouldn't have done otherwise?
Well, that's a good question as well. I was asked that actually in a newspaper interview years ago. And I said, yeah, like I've done all these things. I've traveled on my own. I traveled to Peru on my own. I've not so much music based, but I've literally done worldwide trips on my own, just to achieve those things. I've done 2 bungee jumps, skydiving, all these kind of crazy things.
Wow.
I did a wing walk, you know, like all these things. But my dad said, no, you would have done those things anyway. You were like that as a kid. so there's, you know, there's my perception of it, and then there's my family's perception because they know me so well. So I think it's half and half. Yeah.
But I guess it's good that it sort of pushed you on to think. I guess maybe what I'm getting at is the fact that you may have done them anyway, but because you had this in the back of your mind, it maybe pushed you to do them a bit faster than you would have done, or a bit quicker.
Yeah, the no fear kind of like situation, because, you know, the worst thing, because in my head the worst thing was going to happen anyway. So like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen with everything else? And I think, but with that though, in terms of mental health, I then therefore have always put too much pressure on myself. So I'm very much the sort of person that will run 100 miles an hour and do lots of things. Like anyone that describes me is like, I've got a lot of fingers and a lot of pies.
Yeah.
I've now kind of, you know, because I'm getting a bit older, managed to kind of rein it in and to kind of learn more about my own mindfulness, and just not to kind of be so fast with things all the time, and to literally, you know, just enjoy things. But it's still the case that I do have kind of downers, you know, and there's one side of it, your brain's working so hard to fill in the gaps that your brain gets tired a lot quicker.
Yeah, I was going to say, it must be.
And then, exhausting. And then secondly, you don't realize it because you're not your brain. You know, you're a person, your brain's doing all the kind of legwork. And then secondly, it's a case of, you know, just the emotional kind of constant feeling that you need to do everything. Then you have downers. Like I could probably put this clockwork now. I could be full pace for about 3-4 weeks, and then I'll be in bed for 2 days.
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of like a form of depression, I suppose. But I've learned to accept it. And I've learned to plan plan around it and know that it's coming. So I give myself those 2 days or whatever off. And a lot of the clients I work with, a lot of the, you know, the people I work with, it's because I built my own career, my own job, and my own business. I built it around my abilities and around like what I can do, which is a lot. You know, I'm still very kind of active and still really proud of how I am, very mobile and stuff. But in terms of, I'm aware that I will have these regular downers.
Yeah, and I guess it's, in one sense, it's knowing that that's going to happen and being prepared for it. Because the worst thing is, obviously, if you do have a sort of down or a crash and you just don't know what's going on, that can sort of throw you completely. I'm just going to say Graham Kerr's joined us on Facebook.
Graham.
I'm going to say hello. Obviously, we spoke about him earlier and how he introduced us. Yeah, Graham's a great guy. Actually, he came on the show and he was talking about, I was talking to you about this about the other day, about how when he came to play for us down in London, he wanted to know certain things about the venue because of the physical disabilities and issues that he has. And that sort of links into probably what the next sort of topic we'll talk about. So you've obviously got this issue with your site, and obviously you've had to adapt to it. But one of the things you've done is you've got the Sync Inspire CIC group company, and part of that is giving back and assisting in terms of making sure that other DJs, other musicians who have got issues with their eyesight or sight impaired are able to access it. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So obviously, like, again, for me and for my mental health, just to be able to, it gives me a reason, if that sounds silly, but reason for having these things happen to me, if I can then output and help other people. Like, there's just no point for me personally in just kind of dealing with it myself. I've got to use my experiences to then make sure things are better for other people. It's just the way I am. Yeah. And so, the Sync Inspire was set up a couple of years ago to be able to do that as a not-for-profit, just in general. And my client work kind of, you know, the kind of revenue comes into that company, and then any profits then I can use on outreach projects. Now, I set up as a kind of broad kind of sight loss inspiration kind of project. And from that, a kind of very specific line from it is the VIP experience, which is visually impaired person experience. And it's about kind of just drawing awareness and actually doing physical things to make sure that clubs are more accessible for not just DJs and performers that are sight impaired, but for club goers. So this is another good story, actually. I went to, I was part of this charity, UK charity, about RP, it's specifically people with the RP. And I met, this is more than 10 years ago. I was in my I was about 30. And I met 3 lads who all had RP, and they were all into their dance music. We got on so well. We were all the same sort of person. You know, we're still in touch to this day. One of them, actually, Jono, he is Australian. He was actually living in the UK at the time, or traveling. He was in the Paralympics last summer, and he's actually doing the Commonwealth Games. He's coming to Britain this summer as well. Cool. Anyway, we all got on really well. All kept in touch. Jono then moved to Amsterdam. So we were like, let's have a weekend in Amsterdam. And it was like the blind leading the blind. It was ridiculous. It was so much fun. I've got the kind of sight left. Those 3 hadn't. So I went over with one of the lads. We joined the other 2 out there. And on the way over, I thought, right, who's clubbing? Who's DJing in Amsterdam? And saw that Dave Seaman was. He was playing at one of the clubs there.
Yep.
So I thought, I'm not going to blag it. I don't want to blag anything. So I wrote to him on Facebook. We didn't know each other. I said, look, I'm coming over with my friends. We're all sight impaired, but they are really sight impaired. Can we just, we'll pay for tickets. Can we just... Is there an easy way in, you know, so we don't have to queue? Because they all hadn't been clubbing for so long. They all had high anxiety about it, but they wanted to do it because they love club music and they missed doing it from when they had sight. So Dave wrote back the next day, which is the night of the gig, saying, don't worry about it. Got you all guest list, got you fast track entry in. I've got your own booth to sit in, which was amazing. Wow. Yeah, amazing. And so we had this night out and the boys enjoyed it so much. They felt so safe having their own space in that club. Yeah. And they actually all got on the dance floor at one point, which is amazing because they haven't done it for years. Because when you're sight impaired and when you've got it's just the kind of, your surroundings can be very stressful. You know, your kind of spatial awareness can be off. that kind of thing. But then we got to meet him afterwards, and then he became a judge on the B-side project. So
Wow.
full circle, yeah. But the fact that it made just that little experience, those three friends of mine, made them feel so happy, and they were so safe having their own space, that the point of the VIP project is little things like that. We're gonna get some funding to recce 3 venues in the UK, small, medium, large, to make them more, not just accessible for sight loss people, but just a happier, safer space. So where the VIP booth would normally be, for the VIP people, we just reconditioned that into a booth for low-sighted people. So we'd have dimmer lights in it. We'd have an intercom to the bar, so you didn't have to go to the bar. Perfect. And we'd have this area where you could feel safer. And then obviously for the actual performers, having strip lighting where you need it. All these little things that general club goers wouldn't even know were there. But they're really important to kind of people that have got low sight.
Make a huge difference, though. And like you say, it's one of these things that, again, we were talking about the other day, and until sort of Graham had sort of brought up some of these issues, unless you've got any disabilities or any issues yourself, you wouldn't automatically think that that's important. For example, we talked about, is there a disabled toilet? Does it actually work? Does it need a key? How far away is it from the booth? Is there steps getting up? Is there a sturdy chair I can sit on? All these sort of things that most people will take for granted. And it's only when someone brings up, you think, actually, yes, that is important things, and I need to make you feel comfortable because you're coming to play, and you're going to be at the venue and you're going to stay there.
Exactly. And it's important.
Can you talk about any of the clubs yet, or
no? Because we're actually because we don't want to go out and choose the clubs. We don't want to go out and choose them because we don't want to kind of. I personally, running the project, don't want to be seen as kind of showing any favoritism. So we're actually going to do a application kind of situation where clubs come to us. So as you know, because you saw the article. We were in DJ Mag last month. With a big 4-page feature about it all. So from that, we're also working with this amazing UK charity called Attitude is Everything. I don't know if you've heard of them. And they work on accessibility for all disabilities across the whole music scene. But I've just had a chat with them in the last week, and we're actually going to do a DJ electronic music club driven survey. So basically we're going to, and that's for kind of people with sight loss that either work in the electronic music industry or that want to go and enjoy it. So that's where the survey is going to come from, to really pick out how we can make clubs more accessible. And then I'm also going to do a kind of application form and send it out again through DJ Mag and through my kind of contact kind of companies, just getting clubs to apply. And then a couple of months time, we'll choose those clubs, the 3 clubs who have kind of gone through the process. And then Attitude is Everything we're going to do an audit of those 3 clubs for all disabilities, not just for sight loss. So normally it costs about $5,000. So we're going to fund that for Attitude is Everything to do that. So then those clubs can really kind of take on board what they need to do to make themselves more accessible in general. And then what we're going to do, obviously, is then a tiny corner of it is then make those clubs more accessible for sight loss.
Amazing.
That's a thing.
I mean that all of that is just amazing, and big up definitely for putting all that together. I mean, like you say, it's amazing that you have got these issues that you're dealing with yourself, but you're turning them to a strength in terms of making sure other people can benefit from your experiences and your knowledge and your contacts and everything else. I mean, that's which brings us probably to community, which is one of the things that we certainly deal with at 45 Kings and the 45 Day and an online community and Twitch and all the rest of it. But it's very important because obviously you must have built up quite a community now across the world in terms of contacts and people that and especially in the last couple of years with the pandemic. How has that helped keep things going, and how has that helped with your mental health, knowing that there is people out there willing to help?
It actually has. It's probably the one good thing, the one major kind of obvious benefit from the lockdown is the fact that I was always quite not global in my thinking anyway, and I've got contacts and friends all over the world. But the fact that Zoom became like a part of the dictionary, and definitely. things like StreamYard and what we're using these kind of platforms, not just for work, but in terms of just having those networks all come together. So for example, there's one of the people in my book, the I Inspire book, Lachi. We met because of that book, and she now inspires me, and I inspire her. She's got sight loss too, and she's over in America. And they got this group called Ramped, which is about disabilities in general in the music scene. Now we would never have got these 2 groups, the VIP experience and Ramped together, had it not been for lockdown, because of the accessibility of online chats and online streaming and panels. It's helped me in terms of raising awareness of myself to be able to do the work I do. I was on a panel for Women in Music, which was run in America, but they got me as a kind of UK guest over. And even though I was quite, I'm quite technological anyway, just the fact that I could do it, but people might not have been watching before pandemic. Whereas during pandemic, people, all they were watching was, you kind of got fed up with your Netflix and your things. And just people were really, really kind of desperate for more information and more education. And the pandemic really helped that. I mean, I've noticed since the pandemic, obviously kind of viewers on certain streams that I do for my clients has kind of dropped a little bit. And it's all about people can watch afterwards. But during pandemic, people were just locked in. And we really felt that these kind of networks and connections and communities really came together. And with absolutely no geographical divide at all. So that was a really good thing. Yeah.
Well, that's definitely been, like you say, it's global, and it's the same a little bit with what we do with the 45 Kings 45 Day. It's so across the world, and I don't think it would have happened in the same way had it not been for the pandemic. Because suddenly DJs, certainly in our area and other fields, suddenly thought, right, what do we do? All the gigs have gone out the window. Everyone jumped onto streaming. Facebook sort of cut it down pretty quickly because of copyright.
Yeah, of course they did.
Look, Mixcloud, it's just not quite there.
I've always used Mixcloud though. Like I really like Mixcloud. Yeah. I mean, the lads that started Mixcloud actually went to university in Cambridge, so I knew them back then when they were just starting the idea of Mixcloud. Funny enough, I did a gig with one of them once, but I like it because they've always made sure that they were legally correct.
Yeah.
And artists had the artist kind of, all the legalities were in place, which is why they've taken them so long, but they've done it the right way around. Whereas all the other platforms are having to kind of go backwards on themselves, so.
Yeah. And I think Mixcloud will get there. And I love it certainly for the audio mixes, because obviously that's where all the 45 Day mixes are hosted. And this goes out to Mixcloud, and obviously all the audio is recorded there, and all the shows are on there as well. It's just Twitch was a lot more advanced for streaming and the games, and it was
gaming, wasn't it? There was like before, yeah.
And it was just quite easy for the DJs to sort of jump on the platform.
But then they got into like the whole copyright kind of, and it's almost like, well, I'm willing to pay for it. Just let me pay for it, and then I can pay whatever I want. I'm willing to pay for it as the kind of DJ or the user or whatever. It was just the fact that there wasn't those things in place. Like Facebook should still have something in place, but you can literally put in a fee for your stream that you want to do. I don't understand why it can't happen. So
there's a comment from Adrian, 45 Finch. He says he knows the regional manager of a big club chain, and he can put you in touch.
Cool.
So that may be helpful further down the line. So
that could be actually just to send the application form to, that'd be amazing. Yeah,
definitely. But yeah, so streaming brought a lot of us together, and we've got people worldwide. And it's interesting what you say, because again, we thought when we came out of lockdown, the numbers and the viewers would sort of go down a little bit, and they probably did a little bit, but they seem to be sort of leveling out a bit more now. And I think people have just got used to, certainly on our shows on Twitch, they know when it is Saturday morning or whatever, and they just tune in and out when they can. But again, it's amazing the connections that have been made. And even getting people on this show, talking to people from around the world about mental health and everything else has been amazing. And I don't think it would have happened, because we'd have all still been pubbing, clubbing, DJing.
Well, I think it's definitely kind of like it's like a 50-50, isn't it? I think. Yeah. And I like the fact it's staying like that. It hasn't gone, like online hasn't completely gone now that people are going out again. It's like a merge of the two. Like, I guess, like, nice little example of that is that I met Graham actually in a pub. Actually physically in a pub, and then from that I found about 45 Kings, and then coming to you. So it's like that half and half, and I think that's a perfect kind of management and a way things should be in terms of music, in terms of meeting people. Keeping in touch is important, because you can meet someone once and then you just forget about it, or you don't. But I think the whole pandemic has really, for my part and for a lot of my peers and stuff, it's you've kept in touch or you've reconnected.
Yeah, and I think, like you say, we've done probably very similar to what you've done. You're creating safe spaces for people to be able to go out and live their lives as full as possible.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like that with us. We've created this space where DJs of any sort of quality, from turntablists, DMC champions, down to sort of people who have never done a mix before, never even streamed before, can just come in and be part of it. We don't discriminate, and we try and get as many people as possible. And it's brilliant in the pandemic that we've been able to create these safe, because I think people have been through a lot. People have been through trauma, really. And I don't know if it's going to hit us all, 5-10 years down the line when we sort of realize what we've been through. But it's nice that we've all got somewhere and some sort of community and space that we can all sort of hang out and just get on with our lives without having to worry about what's going on in the big bad world.
Yeah, exactly.
Outside of us, and also I guess as people are getting older or people have got disabilities, they don't go out so much. So obviously it's providing some sort of entertainment or something for people to sort of watch. So yeah, it's been very, very interesting to see what's happening.
Exactly.
Okay, next topic. We've talked a little bit in the past with some of my other guests. Obviously being a woman DJ in, as we've already sort of said, the 2% for the tech side of things. What's been your experience as a sort of woman DJ in the industry?
It's been really good, actually. I know there's been, I know there's lots of stories where it's not so good, but I think, might get kind of cut down. People might not agree with me on this one, but I think it's very much based on the genre of music as well, which has been my experience. Like when I've kind of been talking or liaising with or kind of in the fold with house, for me it feels a lot more segregated and a lot more sexist.
Right.
Whereas in breakbeats and in drum and bass, it's just not like that at all. You just feel like one of the lads, which I've always felt like. It's not because I don't know whether because with breakbeat and with, again, this is just my personal experience, so it's not everyone's, but with breakbeat and drum and bass, it's like, which is what I kind of play out mostly. It's like it doesn't matter what you look like, and that's really important.
Right. Yeah.
It's not that kind of like commercial kind of. You need to have that marketing kind of variable, which actually is more important to the managers and the labels. The marketing side of it, how you look, is more important than the actual music. So with the kind of genres that I love and that I kind of that I work in and DJ out, it's just not like that at all. So I've always had really, really good experiences, and my kind of peers, whatever group I'm in, like the night I run in Cambridge called Whoosh. It's about 10 of us, 10 core members of us that DJs, and I'm the only girl, and I feel like safe as anything. Like I say, encouraged, supported, safe, everything. Just everyone's there's not one bad word to say about it. So I think it's just the scene that it might be, the type of music develops that scene, and the people that are in it. I think depending on what scene you're in, the experience would be different.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And again, I think, like you say, it does depend on what scene you're in. It does depend what sort of genres you're playing, and it does depend on venues as well. You say. But yeah, I can definitely see the difference between sort of house and sort of breaks and drum and bass. Drum and bass and breaks, I guess, a lot more sort of dirty, basement, sweaty clubs, that sort of thing.
Yeah, underground.
Whereas house is like your Ibiza and glamorous. And
exactly, it's very, very different. It's very different.
It's very different.
Yeah, and I do kind of, I like all sorts of music. I get involved in everything, but in terms of working in it and feeling kind of like feeling that I'm an equal, it's been totally fun experience for me. I think also because I tend to run everything, I'm the kind of project manager or I'm the kind of producer. Then I think you kind of get that you're in charge, and you get that immediate kind of respect kind of level, which is nice.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. If they're looking at you and they're thinking, right, okay, this is your event or your venue or your night or whatever, you automatically get that jump up. It shouldn't be like that, but that helps. That does help. I would imagine. So
yeah.
So cool. Right. 45s. We do this little bit on this show where we get DJs to pick out 3 45s. It was Mark Lancaster who first came up with the question. He basically said, what 45s lift your spirits? And that was in the very first show that we had with Double P and Mr. Musto, and we've done it every time since, because it's a good question, I think. So you've picked out 3. So if you can tell us individually, first of all, what each one is, why you've picked it out, why it's special to you. And then we might have a chat about them and then move on to the next one.
Well, the first one, I promised I would bring this one up or share this with you, but I'm going to. Status Quo, Burning Bridges. It's one of the ones that I don't know why it's in my record collection. I have no idea where it's come from. So that's just so I won't be playing that at 45s. But so the actual kind of the 3 that I've chosen. Which
you also need to, if you've got it there, tell us the one that we talked about before on air when we get there.
Oh right, what was that one? No, this. Oh right, yeah. Okay, we'll do.
When we get there,
yeah. So this one, there's sometimes in the wrong sleeves. This one's Reflections by Diana Ross and the Supremes.
Yeah.
And why I love that is because I first heard it on an LP actually, Motown Chartbusters. I've got all those. I've got all of them on vinyl. But it was the fact that it's got such a nice little electronic kind of sound to it as well. It's almost like before its time. It had like you could tell that's when kind of electronic or the kind of synths were coming in. very early days.
Who's the producer of that? Because I know Giorgio Moroder did some stuff for her, didn't he? I don't know if that's he produced that one or not.
No, that's just no. It's Holland. No, it's written by Hollandaise in Holland, obviously. Don't know. Doesn't say it on here.
Probably
produced by produced by Holland. Yeah, so it's back. It's still the original kind of producers from Motown. Yeah. But it had this really nice synthy bit in it. You know, like at the beginning. I don't know if you'll remember, but it's got this kind of nice kind of synthy electronica kind of thing coming in when her vocals come in. So that's that one.
That's cool.
And also,
before we move on to the next one, we got a comment from Edward Bond. We got Ed Bond. He says very interested in clubs that would be safe and welcoming for the send adults he works with.
Cool.
So that'd be quite cool.
And
45 Finch knows it well.
He's saying it's the intro. That's right. Intro, yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, it's amazing. So and Reflections, it's just a nice lyrics as well. I like the lyrics of that one.
Yeah, that's a good choice.
Yeah. And then the next one,
number 2. What have you got?
Number 2. Oh right. So do you love vinyls where you literally, it's almost a bit sad, but not sad. It's like where you actually kind of have them, but you've got someone else's writing on them of how they remembered it or whatever. It's like
it can be good, but it can be annoying.
Yeah. Anyway, so this one is I literally did buy this one. I always love the tune. It's I Can't Stand the Rain by Ann Peebles.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Yeah,
because again, it's got that kind of like it's got a bass line in it. Kind of like real kind of groovy kind of. It's just the kind of amalgamation, the kind of production of it. I love it. So
yeah. What out of interest? What is the writing? What is that person written on?
It says it's got Linda Carr. The Love Squad. I don't know. It's probably the wrong. It's probably the wrong sleeve, isn't it? Yeah.
Misfiled thingy. That's easily done. That's easily done with 45s.
And then my third one is again, it's in the wrong thing. It's got a rack kind of sleeve, but it's Atlantic. But I wanted to do that. I wanted to kind of dedicate this to my family. Because we've been going through a bit of a rough time recently, and just want to kind of mention that just my family, my siblings are awesome, my dad's awesome, my whole family are awesome and supportive, and it's "Stand By Me" by Benny King.
Yeah, classic. That's a timeless classic, and that's so good.
Yeah, and on the B side actually is "Save the Last Dance for Me" by the Drifters.
Well, that's another good one as well.
Yeah,
that's a double-sided banger.
Yeah, right.
That's what you want. That's what we want. That's the sort of. I was sort of mentioning Glastonbury earlier. I'm thinking about packing my bag, and obviously I'm going to try and take as few records as I can get away with. But it's trying to find records that have got
the double.
You're going to play both sides, rather than just like a hip hop track that's got an instrumental, which you probably won't play. But yeah, that's cool. And then you had one that your friend told you not to play on your streams.
Oh no, that was it. That was the Status Quo one. That was it.
Oh, you mentioned the Birdie song earlier.
The Birdie song. Yeah, the Birdie song. Again, like, I've got so many 45s that I should never play out, but they're from when I was a kid. And the very first, I've still got it. The very first vinyl 45 I got bought and I've had for all my life is the Birdie song with the tweets.
Yeah, we had Double P was joking about playing that the other day, and Mr. Lob didn't know what it was, so I posted a YouTube comment.
Brilliant.
Obviously, if you come to it fresh and you don't know what you'll be like.
It's just what is going on. Yeah, but it has such good memories though. Like Benidorm holidays. Like in the kind of like disco of the 1980s holidays you used to go on. Perfect.
And that's where memory comes. Maybe a sort of really annoying song, but at the end of the day, it's the memories that it creates and brings back to you, isn't it? And
exactly.
That's the absolute power of sort of music.
Exactly.
We sort of touched on the fact that you're coming on Coffee and Donuts on the 25th of June, I think it is. What have you got planned? What do you think you're going to be playing?
I think I'll probably do a deep dive into my kind of Atlantic and Stax and Motown, to be fair. Cool. I think I'll go back through all the tracks I've got, all the 45s, and just go through kind of like a little bit of a kind of emotional history of them all, really. For a nice coffee and donuts. Yeah, I think it'll be great.
And when you DJ or stream, are you literally just about the music playing the set, or do you do a bit of talking?
I do talking, so I do radio anyway. Yeah, I do radio. I've got a monthly radio show on Point Blank, so that's kind of I talk a lot. You probably can't tell, but I don't talk too much in my radio shows. It's just kind of interjecting with a few features. I do a Crate Diggers feature. I do a feature on certain things like where the music came from, so playing a dance track and then kind of going back on where it came from in terms of sampling.
Brilliant.
So yeah, that kind of stuff is what I do. So I interject with a little bit of chat, and I also like to get a lot of feedback from people as well. So I always do shout outs and stuff like that. So yeah, I sometimes ask, I give a choice of 2 tunes and I ask for people to say which one they want to play. So whenever I do anything live, it's very interactive.
Cool. Yeah, that's bringing us back to your first 45 gig, isn't it, where you said that people could choose from your record box what to play. And then that's, I think you'll find, I don't know if you've done much streaming on Twitch, but it's that interactivity that sort of really sort of keeps it going. Right, is there anything else that we've missed that you want to tell us about? I'm trying to
I don't think so. I don't know. I think I was going to try and introduce my guide dog, but he's just literally not moving. He's actually having a nice little scratch there in the wrong place. He normally gets in the way. He normally just like knows I'm doing something live, and he'll just get right in the way and come right in front of me. But today he's just interested in having a good old
He's just chilling out. I'll tell you, we've had a few animals on the show. And Zizi got to meet him earlier, so that's quite cool.
But no, that's it really. And I guess just follow me on my socials, because that's where I put all the stuff about all the projects that I work on. So if anyone that has been watching, is interested, like I've said, like with venue connections or anything like that, then just you'll see the links that I put up on my socials. So
I'll drop the give me 2 seconds. I should hopefully be able to copy that in and drop that into Twitch. I've got your Instagram link here, so people. Oh, no, not that one. No, that's the wrong one. Let me get.
Don't worry, do it afterwards.
Yeah, that's fine. Right, I'm just gonna have a quick look and see who's online that we can sort of raid out to. If you just give me 2 secs, and then we'll find someone to raid to. Again, I don't know how much you know about Twitch, but we can go and see. We can pop in and see. We can go and see Sam Tweaks, I think. Might as well. Right, just give me 2 secs. But in the meantime, do you want to just sort of reel off some of your social pages if people want to find you?
Sure. I didn't give you those links before. I'd like to put up on there, but I will tell people now and I'll put them up afterwards. So Facebook is facebook.com/DJ Miss Chivers. And Instagram is Miss Chivers UK. And Twitter is Miss Chivers UK. On Mixcloud, I think it's just Miss Chivers. I was the first one up there, which is nice. And then with the EP release, which I should probably talk about, it was out last Friday, so just over a week ago, and that was my debut EP. It was done with a vocalist called Signey, and there's lots of versions. There's the original in there. Then there's 2 breakbeat versions, which were mixed by Chris Carter, who Graham knows, who introduced me, and Graham actually. And then the 4th track in there is a drum and bass version that I did with a co-producer in Cambridge, Trauma DBC. And so if you literally look up Miss Chivers on Spotify and CMY Records, it's there, because I'm the only Miss Chivers up there, thank goodness.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been really interesting.
Thank you for having me.
I hope people have got something from it. And if you want to watch it back, obviously it'll be on YouTube. Be on Twitch for a couple of weeks, and then the audio will be on Mixcloud. But if you want to find out more or check out any of the other shows, 45day.com, everything's sort of on there. And you'll be on Coffee and Donuts on the 25th of June. So looking forward to that. And thank you for everyone who's tuned in. It's been great to have you, and that's really cool. So let's raid out, and then if you just hang on there for a minute, we'll have a quick chat in the green room, as they call it. But take care. Thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Cool, I think